I'll just okay. So I just want to talk briefly about inspiration. So as you know, I'm Japanese. I was born and raised in Japan. I came to the States when I was 16 as an exchange student. It's funny because people always talk about exchange student. Who did you exchange with? I don't know who they exchanged me with, but anyway, I graduated. I lived in Japan up to high school, and then after that, I moved to the States. But as I grew older, more and more I feel that my cultural background plays a bigger role in my work. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. This is the symbol of Zen. I also love outsider art, war art, art brut. And this is work by Henry Darger. It's incredible work. Has crazy amount of work. So there are, I think, several books published, but it's amazing. Nek-chan, the sculptor from India. And I would say like the strongest influence, the inspiration that I have is what we call cryptozoology. And this is, as you know, Loch Ness Monster. So cryptozoology is the study that which investigates legendary or mythical monsters, but not so much about how do you say that, mythical. It's more about cryptozoology sort of like sits between mythical and science in a way. So it's about study is about to try to prove the existence of these animals scientifically. Bigfoot, as you know, Mothman from Point Pleasant in Virginia. It's a very interesting story. They even made a movie out of this series of events happened in 1 year. It's called Mothman Prophecy by Richard Gere. I lived in Ecuador, as she mentioned, and that was, I was working as a graphic designer at that time, and that was sort of like the moment for me that I kind of like woke me up. And that's also the one of the main reasons that I shifted from graphic design to more of the artistic career is because of that. I was just very inspired by this sort of like very non-graphic designer, more practical approach to the graphic elements they use in the public space. So this is one of those hand-painted billboards, and you find tons of stuff. It's pity because I started living there, and that time people were still producing this hand-painted the billboards and signs, but then soon after that, they started adapting more digital print. So you don't see that many of this stuff anymore. But anyway, just I took a whole bunch of pictures when I was there. Yeah. So this is the one. Okay, so we'll get to this. So before I started doing projection mapping, I started off as DJ, or started doing a lot of DJ performance, and then and later I actually found out that a lot of main sort of like the leading artists in projection mapping field are they come from DJ background, and so it's without knowing I was also following that path in a way. So I started doing a lot of DJ performance, and in the beginning I was actually doing DJing in a club in Lower East Side in Manhattan, and then in the beginning it was fun, but then it's starting to get quite difficult. It's just because people drink and people just didn't care about the DJ. They just always think you're a DJ, so they'll just come half drunk, and they will just ask you to play different music, even though we're mixing videos. And then, I mean, it was a fun time, but I started feeling a little bit limited. And that's the time that I was working as an animator. And because of that, the film festivals, basically, typically they have openings and closing parties, and then I can't remember which one was the first one, but then one of the organizers found out that I actually do DJ performance. They're like, oh, since your film is being screened, why don't you come and do the performance? So I started performing on the stage, and then that became sort of like a thing. And then so I was actively making a lot of animation films that time. So every time my film get accepted, and then either they find out through my website, or that time I wasn't using Instagram that time, or like I let them know, and then they was, oh, why don't you come over so you can perform? So I started doing this thing, and this one is in Berlin. What's the name of it's the Opera House in Berlin, and I was part of some the event organized by actually the animation festival. So I did a stage performance on that. And this was the I had the solo exhibition at the Winzavod, Moscow. And again, since I'm going to be there, like, oh, why don't you do the performance? I also did the performance on that. Okay. This was Utrecht in Netherlands. I was involved with this film. There used to be a great film festival called HAFF, H-A-F-F, and they participated in this public events, and so they invited me to perform in the outdoor. So this is kind of thing. And then in Austria, I think this was 2007. There was an event in Parramatta, Australia, and at that time that the people started sort of seeing my work somewhere as an VJ, so they just invited me to the performance. And then this was the time that I didn't know anything about the projection mapping. And then when they sent me the email, picture of this, saying this is what we're going to do, and this is the balloons, and then I didn't know what to do. And then the projectionist they're working with also, I mean, they didn't give me any clear ideas, so I just kept emailing them, how are we going to do this? Because I never projected onto the spheres. And they're like, oh, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. We've done this before and stuff like that. So this was the stage. And so this was a live VJ performance. I performed with the musician, and then this was part of the bigger event, the one-day event. So they do this event all day, and then at night they have opera singers and performers, and they got TV host and stuff like that. And so this is how it came up. And this was the finale, and then there was a big event, so they didn't tell me anything about this fireworks. I was on the stage, I was just freaking out. I didn't know what happened. So what happened was that I mentioned this because I think it's interesting, is how new and how young the projection mapping field is. So I work with this big projection the installation company, and their solution for these spheres was that when I showed up, they literally took out the cardboard, and then I had they basically cut out the circle, said, this is what we're going to do. And they said, what do you mean? Oh, this is how we mask it. Says, oh, and I thought, oh, that's a great idea. So that's how we did. So basically that time I mean, there was a software, but then it was just not known. So these people in the field, with very advanced technology, they didn't even use the projection mapping software at that time. Now the masking is just one of the most basic features in projection mapping, any softwares, but that's how we did that time. Anyway, so I started doing a lot of video performance, and then I started to feel like basically, I think that was the time that I started feeling a little bit sort of like repetitive in the sense that we just always project onto the screen, and then there's a DJ. So I wanted to try something different. The good friend of mine, a musician called Otto von Schirach from Miami, we were invited to perform at the festival called Mapping Festival in Geneva. And then a friend of mine is part of it, and I didn't know anything about it. And I just didn't even think about the meaning of the term mapping. I just, okay. And it's, oh, if Otto is going to be there, and I want to, we'll perform. And I was like, I want to do something different. And then it's like, okay, so why don't we do I wanted to do something more than just on the stage, just mixing. So it's just, we should do something more interactive. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to put on the costumes. I went to the local costume store in Manhattan, and then I was emailing Otto, said, what are you going to put on? And it's like, oh, so so why don't we do like Batman and Robin thing? So he's the Batman, I'm the Robin. So it's like, okay, let's do that. So I did this thing. Okay, so so I did this event, and then after that, this one actually, we had a great time. So we ended up doing a couple more shows in Europe, but it's just not it's just the working with musicians, the combining with the live musician is a little bit complicated. It's just because the music, the mixing, the technology of the mixing music happens much faster, and it's just much more connected to the audience. And I just always felt kind of limited, and I always just felt like I'm just always just like doing the catch up, and I just didn't feel right. So I was kind of looking for something more, and okay. So that's where projection mapping came in. Okay, so so this is the first projection mapping I did in Quito, Ecuador. So what happened was that the mapping festival that I just showed you, after the performance with Otto, and we did a gig, and then in the backstage, the organizer came and they said, "Hey, Moro, so we're going to pay you the fee, but how about we pay you part of the gig with the software that we have called MapMapper, and then the rest in cash." And I was thinking, no, I think I should just get the full payment. And it's like, and then for some reason I was like, you know what? Actually, I have no idea what it is, but the festival is called Mapping Festival, and MapMapper sounds kind of right. So, you know, fine. So why don't you give me the software and the rest of it and the fee? And I got this the software, and I just completely forgot about it. And then later, some years later, I moved to Ecuador, and then there was a lot going on that time. I do consider that I was very lucky to move to Ecuador that time, because there was a very active cultural funding going on that time. And then I did an exhibition in a contemporary art museum in Quito. And then because of that, I got to know the directors and the people in the city, and then the cultural department. And so we want to do some kind of a public event. So I wanted to do something like that. And I just remember that, oh, there's something called projection mapping. Okay, so I can do projection mapping. And then I offered them to do that. I said, okay, fine, if you can do it. And I had no idea how to do it. But then my philosophy is that if I can figure it out in my mind, and if I can actually figure it out in smaller scale, there's always a way to just scale up. So I literally just put the box, put the projector on, and just pretend like it's a building. I didn't have anything fancy. It's like, hey, if I can actually project this with this small project, all I have to do is just basically upscale the projector. I should just get a huge one. And then, and maybe with if it's just HD, it should be the same thing. The playback shouldn't be affected. So yeah, sure, I can do it. So I took the project, and then it turned out that it was a little bit more complicated than that. But then I found the local the equipment company which can actually handle this. So we worked together. So this is one I did. So I'm just going to quickly show you. This is the first projection mapping I did. And I just thought that the clip's a little bit long, so I can talk a little bit more why I play the video. So I think we can use the time effectively. So as you see this one, this is sort of like a typical the projection mapping, the process that in the beginning, you map the surface, but without the graphic that you're going to use. And you use like something like a grid or the test card. And you just make sure that if you use more than one projector, you have to blend them. So that is the first time that I actually got to see that. And this, I mean, I had done the VJ performance, but this was completely different experience for me. One of the things that I was like, I guess I was really excited about is that the people wanted to be in the video. So I was just picturing people just sitting there, but then people started walking toward the screen, and they just wanted to be in there, take pictures, talk, or just whatever. And then I was just something that I never just thought of. I mean, I did video installation, but then it was more like, how do you say that? It was not necessary that part of this installation, but then when I did this projection mapping, and then people just naturally just walk around and then just interacting with it. So this to me that once I did this, and I said, oh, this is something I actually want to do more. So after this, I started studying more about the projection mapping. Okay. So you can just go to fast forward. Yep. So this was okay. So the next one show you. Oh, sorry, just let me. Oh, wait. Oh, oh, sorry. Something's not right. Oh, okay, I see. Oh, okay, all right. So I'm just going to play this. Oh, sorry. I want to just talk over this. So this is the installation I did for a museum of contemporary art in Monterrey, in Mexico. So I did several projection mapping before this, but the one of the things that about mainly about the projection mapping outdoor is that you have the great huge buildings, but you don't have any control over the projection surface. And then I was just trying to see if there's any way that I can have more control. And obviously that one thing you can do is to actually build your projection surface. So I got I got commissioned to do something. So I just proposed that why don't you let me build something, and then from there I'll do the projection. So it just becomes sort of like a sculptural projection work. And so I did this. I designed this the sculpture in 3D, and we didn't have time or the resources to build it in. Oh, I was in Ecuador that time, but I built it and ship it. So what I did is I just sent a 3D file to the sculptor in Monterrey, and then we worked together. And then in the meantime, in my studio in Ecuador, in Quito, I based on this sculpture, and then I made the animation, and then I just ordered testing, and then just show up, and then just did the settings that day. Oh. So for this, that I knew that the museum have a lot of guests, including children. I just wanted to kind of find a way for children to be driven part of it. So I specifically just asked them to put the projector very high, so that the audience can come, especially the children, can come closer to see the actual projection without casting the shadow. So this was the intention, this one. Okay, so the next one that I'll show you is called Tiny People Tribe. I was commissioned to make animation film by Channel 4 in UK. And then they knew my work as an animator, but I told them that I'm doing this thing called projection mapping, and I want to kind of find a way to combine that with the animation film. And then they're like, okay, I mean, you have the time, so do whatever that you want to do. So so this is the result. So I'm going to give some explanation over this. So for this edit, I mixed it with the behind the scene clip with this so that you get an idea of how this was made. So basically the whole thing was shot in the house, and then my kids were little at that time. So I had to send them away just for just that day. And then I planned everything and then asked my wife to take the kids to to picnic or something. And then so we had the whole house and we just shot the whole thing in one day. So basically the idea is that the little creatures are living inside of the house, and then when no one's around, they come out and play. The the reason why I wanted to do this one is that after doing projection mapping outdoor, especially that is the production process is quite, I mean, as great as the accomplishment, like the satisfaction that you feel, the process is quite long, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily come through. One of the reasons is the budget. It also requires a lot of resources. So I wanted to see if there's anything that I can do something very quickly, and I have full control over. So because of that, I sort of using this projector called Pico projector, and then I decided to just do everything just basically downscale this time, and then small, and just do it inside of the house, and then so that way that just basically the project doesn't have to be big, and then we have full control and we can move around. So that's how I made this film. Okay, all right. Next. So I'm just going to start showing. Okay. So this was commissioned by the street art festival called Magic City. It was in Olympic Center in Munich. So they invited a lot of street artists. I didn't know much about it, but I was always interested in their approach to art. And I was approached by a creator. And then when I heard from them, I told them, but yeah, I mean, I'll be more than happy to be part of the exhibition, but do you guys know what I do? Because, you know, I'm not a graffiti artist, a street artist. Oh, no, it's fine, because you do projection. And it's like, yeah, that's basically a street art. So I wanted to do something like that. And they said, oh, that's great, so I'll do it. Again, this one, we didn't have enough time or the resources to prepare a lot of physical elements. So what I decided to do is that this time I was already back in the States. I decided to use the Tiny People Tribe, the previous film, but just to create the installation version. And I wanted to create the new objects, but then just couldn't figure out. So I just thought, why don't I buy everything that I use in the installation from IKEA, and then just build the whole thing in Brooklyn, my studio, and then just send the product number to them. So when I get there, they have all the items there. So I checked from the IKEA in Munich and IKEA in Brooklyn, and then just chose all the elements and just send them the spreadsheet. And then so when I went there, it was just all there. So I was able to just basically recreate the projection, the installation there with the same items that I requested. The only thing is that I had to paint all the items in white. So I did my best to find the white, but some of them want white. So this was that. All right. Okay, so the next one, I'll just play. A little bit of sound. Okay, so this installation was made in New York, the Governor's Island. There was an art fair, and I participated in the program, and it happened, I think, 3 years ago. And so it was a public event. So once it opens and it was installed for 1 month, and then the people can come in mainly in the weekend to see the installation work. And I think I was one of the 40 artists. So at that time, as you build this projection work, and that you started thinking that you started focusing more onto the solid environment. So let's say if you just project onto the object, but then if you just only put the focus onto the object, and you kind of feel like it's not really like part of the environment. And then I was kind of questioning that if there's any way that I can involve the space itself more, not just project it just onto just this object. And then when I saw the picture of the space, and I realized that the floor was a little bit dirty, but I realized that if I clean it well, and then the floor can get kind of glossy. And then if you put something on the glossy with the light, and it does a reflection, so oh, maybe so I can actually use that the glossy reflection in some way. So I thought of the idea of just making the space look like swamp or the water. And so based on that, I thought of this idea just to put the hemisphere, do projection, and then make the reflect so that it looks like it's coming out from the water surface. So that was the idea. All right. So this one will just play this. This was the work created during the residency for the festival, for video mapping festival in Lyon, France. They invited our artists to create, and the main event was of course the historical building in the center. And then so I thought I was actually going to do that, but then they told me that since you do a lot of mobile or that kind of work, and then they wanted me to try something like that. So it's like, okay, so I can do the projection mapping on the street, but then if I'm to do it, instead of just doing one, I would like to do the series of it. That way, that I can expand my projection or the installation to the bigger area, and then people can kind of walk through it. So I proposed that instead of doing one, I guess I did 5 different locations through the avenue that they chose. So this is the result of that. And then also except the last one, but I wanted to also wanted to sort of like interact with the audience in a street level, like literally. It's just because a lot of projection mapping on the outdoor is very huge and on the building, so it's far away. But so just to give more contrast to it, like I wanted my installation to be very close to the people. So for that, I made sure that the projection are very close to the street, and people can be in the projection if they wish to. All right. And then the next one is, let me see how we're doing with the time. Okay. All right. So this is the projection installation done in museum or sort of like art institute, sort of like a gallery museum type of place. The Spriten Kunsto in Skien, Norway. So the idea is before I started doing a lot of animation work, I used to paint a lot, and then I still do, but I used to do more. I had this series of painting called Monster Series, and it's a large the painting, and then I always just sort of like imagine that what it's like if I animate it. So I actually took the painting, and then created the animation out of it. But then I wanted to do this projection mapping with that. So as a result, okay. Next one. Okay. So I just play. This was it's actually the LED the screen, so it's not projection. This was in Chicago in this project for 150 media stream. So the feature artist and I was invited to create animations for this screen just for that particular month. so I mean, in some way it was great because I didn't have to worry about the projection. It is the screen. But one of the things that after I did realize is that really made me realize that the limitation that you face when you use basically projector for projection. So basically, to use a projection, first of all, you have to place the projector to a certain distance to the projection surface, and then the shadow is always the struggle, because if something goes in the middle and then it casts a shadow, so that's always the struggle, and that's one thing. And the other thing is that to make it work, it has to happen in either dark or low light environment. And when you deal with the screen, you don't have to worry about that. So this was just I was really thinking that, okay, if there's any way that I could overcome that in projection with using the projector. But anyway, so this was the project. And then after that, did this Times Square. Same thing. His idea is kind of similar to the one in Chicago. Chicago provided the animation, but then the spec for the surface. So it's kind of like process is kind of similar to projection mapping, because you create content specifically for the customized surface, but then this time it's the screen, so there's no projector. This is the output. Yeah. Okay, so this one, when it just went live, that's the time the pandemic just started. So it was I couldn't send out the email to people, just invite people to come and see. So it was a little bit not something that I expected. But again, just to see that in screen, that the projection is a very different experience. Okay. And this is Okam. Let me see if you have that. Okay. All right. Just play this one. This was made, I guess it's last year. It was released last year. So music video I created for a musician called Nicolas Cruz. He's Ecuadorian musician, and he does a lot of tour in Europe as well. I think he had a couple shows in Brooklyn last year, actually, before the pandemic. So after I moved back to New York, and then I was doing smaller scale, like not as much as I used to do when I was in Ecuador. I didn't do much of this, the bigger scale or like a large projection, and I was kind of missing. But again, just that for that type of project to happen, that it takes more time, and then so I was doing the indoor projection, but then I was thinking like I want to do something like outside. So I started researching, and then it's basically the main issue is the electricity. To bring the project outside, you have to basically figure out how to get the electricity. So you can run the long extension, but that limits. So I had to do a bit of reading, and then I figured out that what the projector to get, what's the sort of like the strongest projector I can get with the size of battery that I can kind of carry. So once I set it up, and then I was playing with it, and then I got this project, and then this musician was kind of thinking about just 2D animation, but I told him that I do this thing called projection mapping, and I don't know if you have seen it, but I want to figure out a way to actually combine it. And then he's like, yeah, just whatever that you want. So I decided to make the animation in 2D digital, and then in the middle of it, it switches to outside. So the idea is that the characters that she goes outside. So this all shot in Red Hook in Brooklyn. So I had a studio that time around there. So that the one they just saw was the behind the IKEA, where the no one goes, and this is sort of like quiet area. And this is right by my studio that time, and then this is kind of shady, abandoned area in Red Hook, and you can see the Manhattan from there, but no one goes there. So this was so this is the challenge was basically the outdoor part. And then so this is several creatures, and yeah. So after I made the sort of like a technical, sort of like a set that I was pretty comfortable with, but then these batteries are big and the projector is like this big. So I was thinking, how can I just make it even smaller? So I remember that when I did the Tiny People Tribe, and then I was using a small projector, so I sort of revisited the idea, but then I wanted a little bit stronger lumen because it's outside. I don't have much control, and I was thinking I just want to do this in public space, and then without being noticed so much. So we take subway every day in New York, or we were before pandemic. So this is the series I created.
It's okay, we're waiting for the next one.
So the challenge is always how to hide your equipment, basically in this case, projector. And once you set it up, it's a loop, so it just plays it. And then I basically pretend like that I'm not there. So I just walk around and just sort of like watch how people react. So this is the projector was just placed. There's a trash can, and then it's right there, and people just don't notice, which is kind of strange. But I created a series of projections, and I was going to keep doing it, but then when pandemic hit, I had to kind of stop. So hopefully that I can start doing it. It is hustle, of course, and I don't know if you ever taken the New York subway, but yeah, the subway floor is not something that you want to put your hands on. But at the same time, the reaction is the best part of it, and then. There are a lot of is just, I guess it might be kind of New Yorker thing, but also the New York is surprising. There are a lot of people who are involved in visual industry, so some of them even have some ideas. So they were just asking very specific questions like what kind of software I use, what's the model of the projector, or some of them just don't care, but then they also give me some kind of opinion and critiques, and but it's always the interaction with the audience, the people is just always the best part, and I always had a great time, and sometimes a surprise too. Okay, all right. Okay, so this is the one that I did. Yeah. Okay. Is it okay? All right. So I'll just play this one. Okay, I'll just turn it. So after I did the subway, the animation, there was a the residency for street artists, and then they sent me this information about we have this residency for the virtual residency, and this was the last year in July. So that was pretty much roll into like 3-4 months after the pandemic started, at least in New York. So the whole sort of our lifestyle was affected, and then they wanted to sort of like wanted artists to create the artwork kind of reflecting that the new environment that we are living, or we are still living. And then I moved out of Brooklyn, and I moved to Croton Hudson, the river town, riverside town from by Hudson River, and it's about like an hour from New York City. So I was already there. So I told them, oh, okay, so I can just do this outdoor projection, and then I'm in very different environment. So I want to do this in a in a in the nature, because I already did one in the subway, and then I didn't think that I could go back then and do it. So it's surrounded by nature, and then it was very different experience, but it was really nice that this is the first time I actually did projection in with just air and like summer and humidity and just birds and insects, and it was quite very refreshing.
You take the picture of that?
No, I'm projecting this one.
Yeah, that's cool. What are you projecting?
This animation is an art project.
Nice.
Yeah.
Are you video recording or taking photos?
I'm taping it. I'm recording it too.
Am I messing it up?
No, it's fine. I like it when someone passes by. That was a good shot.
It is cool, man. I was like, what the hell is that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so this was the last for the Croton. So this one I put I don't know if you remember in the beginning of this video I had the time lapse of setting this one up. So basically the when I started doing the outdoor, even though you can do this of course in the pitch dark, but it's always nice to have some kind of ambient light. And so that you can see the environment. Like to me, like if you just do the projection in a pitch dark and you just see the projection, like even the building too, like I always call it too perfect. If you do the projection onto like a building in the complete darkness and you don't see anything around it, that could be After Effects. That could be just 3D render. So that I always just try to find a way just to show the environment, like people walking by and stuff like that. And then for this, since it's the countryside, like you don't have this problem in Brooklyn. They're always light, but it's in the suburb. And when sun goes down, it's just pitch dark. So I wanted to figure out. So I figured that right before the sun goes down, I'll capture it. But the thing is that to map it, the area has to be dark. Otherwise, projection, the image cannot see. And then when sun goes down, it's just too dark. So the setting takes certain time, and the filming takes certain time. So just basically, I figured that there are about, I would say like 15, 20 minutes that you have time to actually map it. I mean, bring place the projector, set it up, start the computer, map it, and then you can film it for that time. So I visited there, and then sort of like just parked there and just kind of imagine myself like, okay, so I walk there, do this and this, sort of like they repeat the process in my head. And that day, okay, so today the weather seems to be good, so you just go and just basically just walk straight, like with all the scenario that you created in your mind, and you have the process and you just go and do real quick. So sometimes people just come by and ask questions. I feel bad, but I just say, sorry, just have to do this. And sometimes I'll say stuff like, yeah, this is a project, and then I have to do this. Someone asked me to do it, stuff like that. And it just work really like fast. And then you set it up, set the camera, and just go. So that way, because of that, I had to adjust my the equipment in a way that's easy to carry. The certain tripod has to be in certain size, and everything has to be already assembled. And also there are also a bit of a security or that sort of issues too. Like you cannot park the car in somewhere that you cannot keep it for a long time. And if someone shows up and asks you to move, they just mess up the whole thing. So just also you have to secure the where you can park the car. And then also that if the car comes in and the headlight cannot, if there's a location where the car can be parked, let's say, and then if the headlight, the cast here, it is not going to work. So there's just certain sort of like location scouting that has to happen. So this is just right by my place that I currently live. It's about like 5 minutes. So anyway, so that. And the last one I want to show you is, do I have the video? Oh, okay. Okay, so this was the last one, just opened Wednesday. So I just used my iPhone, so I didn't have time to edit it. So I don't know if you remember, I was mentioning about just basically the light is there are certain limitations that the projection art has, which is like has to be dark, and also the surface has to be always like white or off-white or lighter. And that's also the reason why a lot of projection mapping for the outdoor takes place in old town or colonial buildings, because smaller windows and then like off-white matte finish surface and stuff like that. But so you do most of the stuff on sort of like white surface. And also the other thing is that the area has to be dark. And then I always just want to kind of figure this out, like if there's any way. And then, so if you do projection, the rule is that you don't project onto the black surface, because black absorbs light. And then basically that's just kind of silly thing you do. So when I teach projection mapping, I always tell students, don't use black surface because it's not work. But then I was thinking that what if there's a way to figure this out? Maybe there's a way to figure it out. And then the solution was quite simple. Basically, you just have to upscale the amount of lumen, the projector, the brightness, and then you can figure this out. So that was my logic. So, and then I tested it with the black paper in my studio, and it seemed to work. And then, but then again, the problem is you cannot just use the regular projector in the regular way. It just basically just doesn't work. But then, so I started experimenting. And there's a way to calculate the amount of light. So just to kind of give you and sort of like a figure what kind of lumen that we talk about here. When you see the outdoor projection, like the one in Quito that I did, the first one I did, that's about 12 foot lumber. So we got 12 FL. So it's just a scale. So basically each square feet has 12 foot lumber. So that's the sort of figure that you can remember. And that's the outdoor projection mapping is kind of standard. But to make this one happen, the one that I'm just showing, I had to just go up to around 200 foot lumber. So we talk about 15 to 20 times more. So I just basically figured out that if I just upgrade the amount of the light, the strength, and you can actually beat that sort of like limitation we always talk about as being, you cannot use the black and stuff like that. This was also particularly a little bit difficult because I'm using balloon, and the balloon actually doesn't hold the light well. So the first batch of the balloons that I ordered from China, and then I custom made it, and then I ordered a bunch of them. And then the first one I got didn't work because I ordered a black balloon, and the black balloon is first too glossy, second just too transparent. So I was emailing them, see if there's any way that we can do this. And they had some sample pictures, and one of the pictures they had has a painted balloon, and it had a sort of like matte finish kind of reflection. So I asked them how they did it. So what they did is that they actually took the white balloon, painted in black, and then I asked them, so how does that work with the projection? And they're like, oh, we don't know. I mean, no one uses it for the projection. So it's like, fine. But, okay, so I'll just order a bunch of them. So I asked them to use a white balloon, paint it in black, and make sure it's dry, and then just make sure that it doesn't have a hole. So I asked them to just hold it for, like 3 days to make sure that the air holds well, because it's a permanent installation. So I got them some. Anyway, so that was a long explanation, but so with a bit of a technical, not anything high tech, it's just more sort of like a lot of material limitations. So this is the result. Yeah. So I used 4 projectors, and one is like consumer level projector, but then I had to place a very you have to really limit the amount of light to make it really small. So that part didn't come out as bright as I expected, but the one you see is quite viewable, even with the light around that. So the way I did is I used one of the projector is the one they use in movie theater, pretty much. It's around almost 10,000 lumen, and the other two is 6,500 lumens. But then that kind of projector, you normally use it in the church or the conference. So it's a huge wall. But then I'll just basically by using the lens, I just limit it to the very, very limited space. Like let's say the one that you see on the right is just basically 6,500 lumen projector, but dedicated to that balloon, and there's another one, small one. So by doing that, you can achieve this extremely high the brightness, and then so you can actually make that visual actually visible even onto the black surface. So this was the sort of like a lot of technical the difficulties that I really focus on just trying to achieve. So I wish I could have spent more time on the animation part, but I was really struggling to just get this thing work. But anyway, so this was the last piece I wanted to show you guys. Yeah. But let me see. Yeah, okay, so that was the last piece.
Awesome. That was amazing, Moto.
Oh, thank you.
Are you up for taking questions? I can actually stop the recording. We can just do questions a little more casually.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, of course, yeah.